Hello again. Today is the second video in our course Certified in Risk and Information System Control, CRISC. Last time we talked about the certification and how to get certified. We talked about the exam and its outline. We gave an overview about it and the resources that you can use to make sure that you go to the exam ready to crack the exam. So today we're going to start the first actual video describing the material of this course. As we said last time, we have four main domains: the governance, the IT risk assessment, risk response and the reporting, and an overview about information technology and security. As we said, for each one of these domains, we will have 2 or 3 videos so that the videos are short enough that you don't feel bored. The first video today is about organizational governance. Organizational governance is a very important concept for all professions, not only for IT risk, because the governance is mainly concerned about having the same direction for your organization. If your organization is having a specific strategy, it has some goals that the organization wants to achieve. For example, maybe you are working for a company that is aiming to increase its market share or opening new markets or having diversified products, whatever the strategy of the organization is. You have to make sure that the whole organization is going in the same direction. Every department and every unit is supporting this strategy and supporting the organizational goals. Not every department is going in different direction. So you do that through a number of tools, having a strategy, having identified goals. And from the goals of the organization, you have goals for the second level. You have strategic goals, you have tactical goals, you have operational goals, so that every department and every unit has its own goals that when it's achieved, it is supporting and contributing in the goals of the organization. So you have policies, you have procedures, you have governance steering bodies. We're going to talk about that in details. The next video will be about the risk governance, which is the part related to the risk professionals, the governance part of the risk. This will be the next video. So before we start, we have to identify and clarify very basic concepts that you as risk professional or anyone that is involved in risk management must know. First, what is risk? In every aspect of your life, you have risks. In your business, you have risks. As they usually say that there is no risk, there is no gain. You cannot have business without risk. So, for example, if you are a company working that is having a production line, this production line may fail, may produce low quality products, may have power cut, etc. So the risk is some event that may or may not happen. And if it happens, it will have a negative impact. So it's not something that is 100% sure it will happen, and it's not something that is impossible to happen. It is something that has a probability. It could happen or it may not. And if it happens, it will have a negative impact on the process, the business process. So in order for this risk to materialize, there should be a vulnerability. There should be a weakness. Let's take an example that you have a company premises that is having some precious stuff or some place where you store your products, and these products are very precious and could be stolen. If the thief wants to break into this location, he or she will start looking for weakness points. Should I go through the door? Should I go through the ceiling? Should I go through the air conditioning tubes? He will start studying your security system, finding the weakness points that he can go through. So in this case, If you have some part of your premises that is unsecured, this is a vulnerability. And the threat actor is the thief. So you have to study the vulnerabilities, your own weaknesses, and see how you can secure them, how you can cover these weaknesses, how you can mitigate them. And at the same time, you have to study the behavior of the threat actors. Not all thieves are the same. Some thieves are naive. They will just go and try to break the door, to break into the place. Some thieves are very smart. They have very sophisticated tools, and they may go into the premises from points that you cannot imagine. So you have to study the threats. This is called threat analysis. You have to study the threats that may impact your process so that you would be ready to make sure that you have the right controls to prevent those threat actors from materializing the risk. So to study or analyze the risk, and this we're going to talk about in details in the last in the video after the next, you measure the risk using two aspects. We said before that the risk is something that could happen or could not happen. So there is a probability. If this probability is high, or this probability is medium, or this probability is low, of course, your interaction or your response to this risk will differ regarding on the probability of the risk. You cannot have the same attention and the same cost and the same controls for a risk that has high probability, the same like the risk that has low probability. And also when this risk materializes, will it have a huge impact? Will it have a high impact? Will it have a medium impact? Will it have a low impact? So if you have the risk that has a high impact and high probability, this is your top priority. This is where you invest more to put controls to mitigate this risk or prevent it if you can. Or sometimes you may cut part of your business because the impact and probability of this risk is higher than the gain that you can get. So in this case, you may descope your business. You may drop part of your business because you cannot handle a risk of this size. So to measure the size of the risk, you have to consider probability and the impact. And you start prioritizing, putting a list for the risks and putting the right controls for each one. As we said last time, this is a golden rule. Your controls and your response to the risk must be cost efficient. You cannot put 20 grand to mitigate a risk that if it happens, it will cost you 10 grand. This is, of course, very stupid. So if the risk happens, it will cost me 10. And it may not happen. I just have to watch it. But to prevent this risk, you want to put controls that will cost you 20 grand. I think living with the risk is much more cost efficient. So this leads us to talk about the controls. We have said the word controls a lot of time. The controls are the mechanisms that you put to handle and manage the risk. So how you're going to manage or handle the risk? There are several sorts of controls. For example, the control could be preventive. You try to prevent the risk. You try to make this risk impossible to happen. This is not usually possible. Sometimes you can do it, but sometimes you cannot find the control that totally eliminates the risk. So you try to do your best. As we said, we were talking about the high probability, low probability, high impact, low impact. You try to lower the impact of the risk if it happens. Or you try to lower the probability of the risk. So you make the risk moving from the red area to the yellow area or to the green area if you can. You have to put some detective controls. Who said that once you put the preventive control, you are 100% sure that the risk will not happen? It could happen. So you have to put some detection, something to tell you that the risk happens, an alarm. So, for example, you can put an alarm system. If we talk about the example we talked about the thief trying to rob your premises, you can put an alarm. If the risk you are afraid of is fire, you can have a fire alarm. An alarm that would tell you the risk happened. We have fire. So that you can go ahead and start working to recover or correct the impact of this risk or prevent it. You try to put out the fire, or you try to take all your stuff out of this place, whatever you can do. So the corrective controls, when the risk happens and it has an impact and it makes some damage, you want to recover from this damage. How can you correct the impact? For example, you have a virus that attacked your system. And the aim of the virus is eliminating, removing, deleting your data. So you lost your data. But you were smart enough to have a copy. You have a backup. So your corrective control is having a backup. I will take a daily backup. Every day, I will take a copy of my data to be ready. And if the virus attacks, of course, I have the preventive controls. I have an antivirus. I have all the tools that could prevent it. But what if a zero-day virus attacks your system and deletes the data? I was ready. I have my backup, and I will use this backup to recover my data. So this leads us to two important concepts, the inherent risk and the residual risk. What is the difference between these two types of risks? The inherent risk is the risk that you have without doing anything. You wake up in the morning, you don't do anything. The universe is as it is. You don't do anything about your system. You leave it as it is. So this is your inherent risk. You don't do any protection for your premises. You don't do any fire alarm. You don't do anything that you can use to put out the fire. You leave everything as is. So what is the size of the risk in this situation? This is inherent risk. Fire could happen. You will not find something to put out the fire. You don't have an alarm to tell you that the fire is on. You don't do any protection against theft. So this is your first and native baseline. You start putting controls. You put a fire alarm. Yeah, you put motion detector to detect if the thief is trying to attack the place. You hire guards. You do whatever you can do to prevent the risk or detect the risk or correct the impact of this risk. After you deploy all your controls, you still have risk. Because let's face it, you cannot have zero risk. This will never happen. We are not in heaven. We are in real world. But your aim is to decrease the size of the risk by decreasing the probability or the impact or both of each risk until you have an acceptable level of risk, a level of risk that you can live with. This is what we call the residual risk. This is the risk that we're going to accept and we're going to live with. Every day you go to your work, you have the risk of having a car accident. Does this prevent you from going to your work? If you don't go to your work, you will get fired. You will not get money. Your kids will starve. So you have to take this risk. This is a residual risk. This is a risk that you can live with. But after you put the right controls by having a safe car, ensuring that you have maintenance, when you drive, you watch out for the traffic law. So you do whatever you can so that this risk is an acceptable level of risk. So let's talk about the risk management life cycle. We have 4 steps of risk management life cycle. We start by identifying the risks. Everybody who is involved in this process will sit together in the same room and start thinking, what risks could possibly happen? There are different approaches that you can use for that. We're going to talk about it in details when we talk about the risk identification. There is a bottom-up approach. There is a top-down approach. We're going to talk about each one of them in the next videos. Then you start analyzing, assessing the risk to identify the risk impact and risk probability. We'll also talk about it in details in the next videos. Once you have the impact and probability, you can prioritize your risks. You can put an ordered list. This is the most important risk. This is the second most important, and so on. Hence, you can put your risk response. You have to put the right response strategy for each risk. So once you put your controls and everything is okay, everything is going fine, you don't go to sleep. You have to monitor the risk and monitor the controls because the risk could change. The risk with high impact today could be very high impact tomorrow. The risk with low probability today could be medium or high probability tomorrow. The control that is working fine today may not be functional tomorrow because the other parties, the threat actors, they might find ways to go around your control and deceive it or break it. So you have to be alert. You have to revise. So IT risk management is a continuous process. It's not a one-time exercise. It's a living process. It's something that you have to revise every single day. So now we're going to talk about the risk appetite and risk tolerance. When we talked about the residual risk, we said that you put the right controls so that the risk will go to an acceptable level. So the risk appetite is the level of risk that you can live with, that you can accept. So in my business, we can live with this level of risk. But in other business, it could be different. The level of risk appetite is different from business to business. For example, in oil industry, they can live with high risk levels because they have very high gain. Those guys can pay money to governments to inspect in 10 places to find oil. They may not find oil at all, or find in one location, or two locations, or three locations. It depends. They could find oil with low quality or high quality. Who knows? But at the end, they have their own calculation that will make this business profitable for them. And this profitability must be aligned with the risk level. So the higher the risk level, the higher the profitability. So the risk appetite is industry-based, and it could be organization-based, based on the strategy of this organization. This organization is risk-averse or risk-taker. So the risk appetite is the amount of risk that the organization is feeling happy to live with. This is the level, the green level, we are happy. But at some point of time, you might take some extra risk to achieve some extra gain. And it could be temporary. I'll give you an example. You are going to your work. In order to ensure your safety, you make sure that your car is maintained. You have maintenance, you have brakes working very well, you have oil, etc. You abide by the traffic law. So for example, you cannot exceed 60 kilometers. You watch out for the lights. But at some point of time, you get a call telling you that someone dear to you that is in the hospital and they need you very quickly because you have to do something for this person to save his life. For example, you have to donate blood or whatever. So at this point, you are ready to break the traffic law. Instead of walking or driving at 60, you can drive at 70 or 80 because you want to go in a hurry to save this person's life. But of course, he will not drive at 120 inside the city and cause your own death or kill someone. So this is the intolerable risk. So the risk tolerance is some extra risk that you can deviate from risk appetite temporarily, but within a certain limit, because you have some sudden requirements, something that you have to face, some extra risk that you have to take temporarily and within a limit. But of course, you cannot go to the red area. The risk governance, we're going to talk about it in details, but we're going to have an overview, a quick overview now. As we said, it's all about having a common direction for the organization. You have a strategy for your organization, and from the strategy, you have policies that tell you what is wrong and what is right, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So you have different policies for each type of operation. Then you have procedures telling you how to do your work while complying with these policies. You cannot have 2 or 3 persons doing their job in different manners. You cannot go to a bank and find 3 different tellers doing their jobs in different ways. All of them have the same procedure, the same policy. So if you go to person X or person Y or person Z, all of them will do the same service in the same manner. It's not up to each one of them to do the job whatever he or she likes. So this is important to make sure that you have accountability, because if you don't have this procedure, everybody will do whatever thinks that's right. It's up to them. So you cannot hold them accountable for whatever they do. Of course, you should have some steering body overseeing the senior management who is making sure that all business units are doing their job correctly while ensuring risk management practices. As I said, we're going to talk about it in details next time. So one of the important parts of governance is having responsibility and accountability. The RACI matrix is one of the very important tools that are widely used to describe this responsibility and accountability. We already have a whole video about the RACI matrix. You can go back and watch it in the channel. Everybody who is involved in every activity in the process could be either responsible or accountable, or should be consulted or should be informed. Responsible means that this person is responsible for getting the job done. So you are a teller in a bank, you are responsible to serve the customer. If the customer wants to withdraw some money, you will follow the process. You are responsible for following the process, making him sign the right papers, doing the right actions on the system, and handing him the cash. The accountable person is the person overseeing the task, the person ensuring that this task is done correctly. It could be your manager, it could be your customer, it could be a steering committee. So this is the entity ensuring that the responsible person is doing the right activity. The consulted person or the consulted persons are the guys that you can refer to consult, the experts, the subject matter experts. So for example, if you are working in your company and you are doing something and you want to make sure if this activity is compliant with the regulation or with the law, you have some experts that you refer to. So you go to the legal department, or you go to the compliance department or risk department and ask them, if this correct, what should I do with that? So these are the subject matter experts. The informed persons are the ones that should be aware. They should be involved. You have to keep them involved. So for each activity, you have to identify who should be responsible, who is accountable, who should be consulted, who is informed. We have different roles in the risk management process. So we can have a risk manager. This is the person responsible for the risk management practices in your organization. This is usually the risk department. The risk analyst is someone who is helping or supporting with the analysis assessment of the impact and probability of the risks. It could be someone from the risk department or from other departments. This is someone that will sit and study the risk and analyze it and measure its impact and probability. The risk owner is a business person who has the accountability and authority to take the decisions against this risk. So if we have a risk, and this risk should have some controls, these controls will have some cost. It will need some effort. It will need some personnel to work on these controls. Who has the authority to assign this fund or these resources, or the person that will accept the risk? If we find that all possible controls have higher cost than the risk itself if it happens. So this person will either decide to accept the risk or eliminate this part of the business, because the impact of this risk is much, much higher than the gain that we're going to get from this business or from this piece of business. And it happens. So this should be an accountable person, mostly a senior management person who can take such decisions, because these decisions must be done consulting the strategy of the organization. The control owner is the person responsible for ensuring that the control is correctly designed and correctly executed. Because you could have a list of controls that look nice. On paper, they are very elegant. But when you come to implementation, they are poorly implemented. Or when they are implemented, to find out that they did not have the right design. So we have to go back and revisit the control design and ensure that we have an updated version of the control, an improved version of the control. The control steward is the person doing the routine process of the control execution. So what is the difference between control steward and control owner? The owner is the one that designs the control and implements it. For example, if the control is having a backup, let's take the example I told you about when you have an antivirus attacking you. If you are taking a backup, so you decide to take a backup of your system. The control owner will design how we're going to take the backup, where this backup will go. Will it be on the same server that could be impacted? The usual joke that we see on Facebook, or it will be on tapes or offline disk. How often shall we take the backup? Is it weekly, daily? The control steward is the person doing the action itself. So if you tell him that he has to take the backup every day, he will take a daily backup. The control owners comes back and say that no, daily is not enough. We have to take it every hour. Because he studies the performance of the control and finds out it's not efficient. So he will change the control design and inform the control steward, so the control steward activities will change. And instead of taking a daily backup, he or she will take an hourly backup. The subject matter experts, of course, people who are experts in all different areas. They are not experts in risk only, but in all areas that you can consult and learn from. So an important part of the organizational governance is the organizational culture. How is this culture of the organization working? We have different types of organizational culture. You can find the vulnerable culture, the culture that everybody doesn't care. Whatever happens, happens. They don't just care. They take it easy, they take it slowly. Nobody cares. Or the reactive culture. When something goes wrong, we have to react. We wake up and start reacting. We have the culture, the compliance culture, the organization that watches for the law, for the regulation, and we have to make sure that we are compliant with all laws and all regulation and our policies. So whenever somebody breaks the law, breaks the regulation, or breaks the policy, a severe action is taken. Some organizations are very proactive. We don't wait until things go wrong. We have to be on top of things. We start forecasting or anticipating what could happen tomorrow. And we start putting scenarios and be ready for these scenarios, and maybe put controls and put actions to prevent these scenarios or benefit from these scenarios if they happen. So this is a proactive organization. So there are different types of organizational cultures. You as IT risk professional, why should that be important for you? Imagine that you are an IT risk professional working in a don't care culture. Nobody cares. You do your job, you ask everybody to analyze the process, find out risks. They don't just care. So your life will be very difficult, but your life will be much easier in a compliant culture or a proactive culture where everybody is keen, everybody has concern, everybody is trying to do the best. So when you give them alarm, everybody is alert. They consider what you say is very important. So you have to watch for the type of organizations that you are working in because it will impact your job. So the risk culture will be studied in different aspects. If we are talking about the risk area, it could be a risk-taking or risk-averse, as we said. For example, the oil industry is a risk-taking industry. How you behave towards negative outcome, some organizations start to learn. This went wrong, and we lost money, or we lost business. Let's sit and learn from it so that we can do better next time. Some cultures are blaming. Let's find out who we should blame for it. Let's point fingers. Let's find a goat to sacrifice. And the behavior towards policy compliance. Are we concerned about compliance or we don't care? One of the important responsibilities of risk professional is having risk awareness program. You are responsible for having risk awareness for everybody. These are some of the key important points that you have to consider when you are developing your awareness program. You have to make sure that you have awareness methods, awareness programs tailored for each group. You cannot have the same awareness program for senior management like you have for junior people. You cannot have the same awareness for people working, for example, with credit cards, like people who don't touch any financial issues. Everybody has awareness needs. So you have to study the awareness needs of each of your stakeholder and put the right awareness program for them. You should help them mitigate all organizational risks. You have to be effective. You have to ensure that you are having a method to measure the effectiveness of your awareness program. It's not just collecting everybody in the town hall and giving them an awareness session. This is not enough. You have to see how to measure the impact of this awareness training. Everybody could be sitting for 2 hours. That's nice, 2 hours that we sit away from the work, and everybody thinking about something else aside other than work or holding their mobile phones, chatting. No, you have to get their attention to make sure that everybody is listening and considering the importance of this awareness. And you have to have senior management support. Without senior management support, your life will be hell. And everything you do and everything you know will be useless because nobody will care. So you have to make sure that you have management support. Last but not least, we're going to talk about policies and standards. Policies, as we said before, are telling you what you should do, what is right and what is wrong. It's the law. Procedures is telling you how to do it. So it will tell you the steps and the accountabilities and the responsibilities. So the teller in the bank will do so and so and so, then take the papers of the customer who requested a withdrawal or making a deposit to give it to the operation guy to do his part. Then the operation guy will hand the process to someone else in the back office who will do so and so and so. So this should be described in the procedure. It's the how-to document. The standards is telling you some best practices, Mostly the standards are worldwide standards. The guidelines is something that if you do it, it's nice to do it, but it's not mandatory. But it's something very nice if you do it. But it's not mandatory like the policies and procedures. Here are some risk management standards and frameworks that you can learn about. Don't forget to follow the channel and click the bell so that you get notification when we put the next video. The next video will be about risk governance. I hope this video is useful for you and wish you the best of luck.